Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the PolyInnovator OmniContent. My name is Dustin and my ambition is to inform and educate a community of innovators. And if you are watching on TeleInnovator or listening in on the POLYCASTS, then you have come to the right place for success. Today we are looking at the Self-Education Crash Course, which is a OmniContent that I created. I'll spend more time in the video introducing OmniContent, explaining what that means, but I'll give a little rundown just so you guys know. Essentially speaking, most creators start with a particular pillar piece, usually a video, and then they break that down into a podcast, and then they take the transcript to make it a blog post. Now, knowing how my skills work, I like to do blog posts. That's kind of where I started out a decade ago at this point, and so I wanted to maximize what I was good at. I start with a blog post, I turn it into a video, I turn it into a podcast, all three get social campaigns, and on top of that, I create a slideshow based around it, which you can see on the screen hopefully as well. Now, what I'm hoping to do is be able to use a slideshow as a visualization for the stuff I'm talking about, and overall, be able to communicate the idea to you in a more effective manner. So essentially speaking, we come down to the fundamental aspects behind self-education. What I generally talk about is the basics of Self-EduDevMent, and that's the education, development, and improvement all into one, and how that impacts your self-education as a whole. Basics of autodidactism and the modular degree. Have you ever wanted to learn something new but just didn't know where to begin? When you come to this realization that you want to choose your own education, or in this case, learning your own way, it comes down to choosing the fact that, like, hey, traditional means are not working for me, or I need to find my own pathway, learning my own way. So this guide that I create, this crash course, is your guide to self-education as someone who's getting started for the first time, or one of the first times at least. So essentially speaking, I'll cover that up a little bit, but step 1, you want to choose the skill that you need or want in your life. Choose a skill that you want to work towards, find what the thing that you want to try to enact. Step 2, you got to know your process and create a habit. Everyone is different, so when you're trying to learn a new skill, sometimes it comes down to what you're able to do and be able to process quickly. So if you're generally a good learner, a quick learner, then you can do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time span. But if it takes you a while, then you have to build up that skill, build up the learning habit. And then step 3, I'll scroll this up a little bit, find multiple sources, i.e. courses, books, articles like on PolyInnovator, Polyblog, or just slideshows, or just anything you can find that can teach you the information. There were some points where I looked everywhere for information. It turns out what I was looking for was a slideshow on the slide decks on LinkedIn. And it's interesting because no matter, even the same company didn't have the same information on their website. It was only in the slideshow. So you just got to look everywhere for what you're trying to learn and try to take in swaths of information. Next would just be, why a multitude? Why do you need that swath? And so when it comes down to the fact that, like, do you want to be skilled in this area? Do you want to be proficient in that skill? It doesn't have to be a master level. It doesn't have to be journeyman level. You just have to be good at what you're doing. They say it only takes around 20 hours of deliberate practice to get good at a skill. Obviously not mastering, but good. And so you want to make sure that you get to that level as soon as possible. That's what PolyInnovator Academy is about. It's all about trying to get you ready for self-education and get you ready to push yourself to that level, basically. So this is a quote that I put there because I really think it should be more commonly thought about. Education should be oriented around what you need, so the necessity of modularity comes into play. Imagine if your degree catered to you, instead of you having to cater to it. And so when it comes to a lot of these different aspects behind self-education, it's all about taking action. How do you take action? Well, it comes down, I keep saying it comes down a lot today, but it does come down to these different levels of interaction between you and learning material. Decide if the action is worth it for your goals. So is searching for that particular skill really worth it to what you need to know? And on top of that, just make sure that you have the ease of access to learning. Sorry, there's some construction going on in the background there. So what I mean by that is that your brain works on a resistance basis. So if the skill that you want to have is hidden away, like let's say you're trying to stop watching TV, try to make sure you see my hands, stop watching TV, but you do want to work on learning how to play the guitar, then you need to make the difficulty levels switch. Generally speaking, a remote for the TV is going to be right there on the coffee table, easy access, quick to get started. The guitar, on the other hand, may be in the corner of the room or in the closet, hidden away, so it's much more of an effort to actually get to. So what you need to do is flip it around. Put the controller, or the remote, or if your game consoles is your thing too, either one of those, put them in a drawer, in the back maybe of the drawer, far away, so that actually takes an effort, maybe not much, but enough effort each time to get it out. Meanwhile, take the guitar, place it right next to the coffee table or out in the living room where you're going to see it and say like, hey, you know what, I'm bored, let's go ahead and get this started. So that's how it works. Now, who is it for? I got on this slide a little early here, but essentially it's people who need a start, people who want to make a pivot in their career, or just simply want to learn something that you can't do elsewhere. That's what my particular goal was. I wanted to learn how to work in smart city development, but there was no degrees that actually could cater to that. So I had to create my own. So if you have a situation like that where you feel that you need to get a specific education, you can create it on your own. That's what this crash course is about. And then what is the process? So essentially you want to write down 3 ideas that you want to work towards. Just 3 simple skills that you want to try to learn. Take a moment to decide how long do you think this is going to take for each one and in total. And don't let the time difference discourage you. Sometimes it may take a while to learn a skill. It may take 20 hours to actually learn it proficiently, but it's still going to take time for you to get those 20 hours. And then on top of that, just make sure you found multiple resources for each skill. Swath them, interleave which one you're learning, so you don't just focus on one, focus on all 3, but pick one that's going to be your first one that you're going to solve first, or learn first, then go to the second one, then go to the third one, but kind of interleave them so you don't get bored or discouraged. All in all, that should be the basic explanation for what the crash course is all about. Let's get started. You'll find links in the description for various different aspects of OmniContent, and look forward to the video explaining OmniContent. Cheers.